From the ancient world to a modern city, we continue our exciting urban journey through the centuries. Hello everyone, this is Cityburg, and this is the third long-awaited episode of this series. Here we will continue to follow and live with a city that never stands still and keeps changing through the ages. This episode will be truly monumental. In it, we will see the beginning of construction of the most iconic buildings of this era. We are now at the height of antiquity, and it is time to start building grand structures. All the settlers always looked at Hesperian Hill. It rises above the city and can be seen from everywhere. For a long time, people wanted to build a sacred place here. They wanted a temple for the main triad of gods, Jupiter, Minerva and Juno. This is how the construction of the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus began. The location is also good because the city quarries are nearby. The stone will not to travel far. For our time this is very important and critical. The temple of Jupiter will be built over a long period of time, because it belongs to the category of great wonders. Great wonders are built while the rest of the city continues to grow and develop at the same time. Many generations may change while watching the temple slowly rise above the city. At the beginning, it was important to prepare the foundation for the construction. Luckily, under a thin layer of soil, there was strong solid rock. Next, as the need for wood kept growing, it became necessary to build a timber workshop. In any strategy game, this should be done first, and as we can see, we cannot continue without it. So, a timber workshop appeared in Marshgate village, right along the road. Whenever I have a good chance, I try to replace the standard trees, they really do not look very good. For this, I use the Bob mod, it helps a lot. It also removes modern props from objects, so they look more authentic for that time. Even then, in ancient Rome, woodworkers often marked beams with special symbols before construction. These marks showed where each piece belonged, so large buildings could be assembled more easily. And the timber workshop was needed at the right moment, because now the city needs its first shipyards. Building trade ships has become an important step for the city's future growth. The shipyards will also allow us to build our first fleet to protect the trade routes. In fact, like this, almost unnoticed, the outline of the island was changed for the first time by adding a small piece of land. Via Burgonica became a straighter road. The main thing for shipyards is the ability to build ships in a convenient way. And I decided to show you how at the beginning I chose not the best solution for this. I used these improvised hangars. They really looked too fancy and too bulky on the shore. I could not allow that, so I had to rethink the project. In the end, I decided to make something like level 1 shipyards. For now, these are open builders yards without roofs. The materials are stored there and there is an exit to the river and the docks. Many things in the city happen very spontaneously. Projects like these are often a matter of chance. I place a few columns, then I see that arches would look good here, and after that I start to form the walls. This structure is very light, but it still defines the territory of the shipyard. The rich villas has no chance to remain in this area. Because of the construction of such a production site, the residents were forced to look for a more attractive place that better matched their magnet status. On the newly available space, we can place storage areas for wood and other materials from the timber workshop. This will allow us to bring materials here not only for shipbuilding but also for the needs of the city. And since this place is close to the port, we can organize its trade as well. In a completely natural way, the nearby districts become more dense and more urban. Apartment buildings are now the norm for our settlement. So the city gained a new production center and a shipyard that will provide our own ships. Many people received the chance to work at the shipyard. This also began to attract more and more residents to the city. What separates a simple settlement from a real city is the ability to produce more complex goods. Now this is a full ancient city where life is busy during the day. The main gates of the city are still the river and the port. From the very beginning, this district has only become more dense and new docks were added. However, to make true water gates worthy of the era, we need a beautiful port. A port that welcomes settlers and merchants, a port that immediately wins its visitors with beauty and decorations, and a place that becomes a center of trade and market relations with the outside world. And the new port became a real challenge for me. I had never used the procedural object mod in such a complex way before, but what else can I do? In the Steam workshop there is nothing even close to what we need. In fact, there is almost nothing there that belongs to the ancient Roman period. So once again we have to improvise. I spent a lot of time just choosing the right stone texture, but it was worth it. The natural stone now looks beautiful and will become a kind of signature of the city. It was important to start with a strong foundation for the main embankment, from which the docks and piers will extend. I also always wanted to make stairs that going down into the water, so very small boats could come close to the shore and people could walk down to the river. The clean lines of the arches will create architectural harmony, and this pattern will also repeat in the facades of the buildings. I started with the main building first. Since this is a kind of a gate to the city, I used arches at the base. They represent a portal and an entrance into the city. Inside the building there will be a covered market and storage rooms where goods will be kept after arriving at the port. As I said before, this kind of construction is pure improvisation, and I really enjoy this creative process, creating something completely new from zero, something that will make the city different from any other. Of course, I could think about making this structure as an asset and sharing it with everyone. I would really like to do that, but I'm not an asset creator. This is a completely different field for me. I have thought about creating something for the Steam workshop or for Paradox mods, but right now I simply do not have enough time. But it is definitely a very exciting process. For example, to create the look of windows, I use the same object, just changing its texture. Sometimes it feels like I'm not playing a game but working in a 3D program, but at some point this is simply necessary, especially in a project like ours. I'm really looking forward to the modern age, because most assets exist for that period. Even for the medieval era, there are far more objects and more choice than for the ancient one. So maybe some people will say that the full potential of the ancient period is not fully developed. But this is just a condition of the series, and it is important to understand that. For example, the statue of the Colossus, which in its full size looks too extensive in my opinion, looks absolutely amazing in a smaller version in the context of this port. If the city were located by the sea, maybe I could keep its original vanilla size, but for some reason I cannot fully explain it. For me it completely broke the atmosphere of the city. An additional port building is mainly for the needs of tax and duty collectors. It can also be used as storage. Here I decided to design it in a more classical style with 2 rows of columns and a portico. In the ancient world, the column order with a portico was a symbol of power and harmony. It showed strength, balance and respect for tradition. That is why it was copied everywhere: temples, markets, public buildings. It became a universal language of architecture across the world. That is why when you look at the city, it is often hard to understand where the temple is or where someone simply built a private villa. The whole city was filled with columns and triangle roofs. I intentionally left these corners of the supporting walls rising above the roof. It seemed to me that this gives a special character to this small but very elegant building. No matter how many details a structure has when we build it by hand, it is very convenient to combine them later into one object. This way we now have 2 separate main buildings and a large embankment that looks like it was placed as one single asset. Now, when the main trade is moving to the port area, I decided to free more space for markets and commercial buildings. Here will be the first taverns and inns where merchants and travelers can stay. Most of the embarkment square and everything around it will now be used as a market. The trade rows with rare overseas goods will be inside the main building. But here you will also be able to exchange or find goods for almost any need. Since the passenger and cargo terminals are not yet divided into separate zones or even districts, This creates that true atmosphere of sea trade where everything mixed together, goods, stories from distant lands, and the romance of something new. While I have the chance, I want to share some useful tips that may help you create something similar or even something more detailed. Even if we work carefully on details, we cannot focus on them too much. In a city like this, almost every place will change over time. All the details we create now will need to be rebuilt later. Since the stone base of the embankment is not an asset, it does not level the ground to its height. So by default, people who come to the market will not be visible, but this can be fixed if we manually raise the ground under the market. I use a terraforming line for this. In fact, you could even use a road and lift it with move it, but the terraforming line is more convenient because it is invisible. It remains to add a few more details and that's it, especially the lighting in the form of these fireballs. They look very authentic everywhere. For some reason it seemed to me that these stone blocks should be added to the main building. I am not sure, maybe stairs could be located there. The new port and market are ready to begin their work. They show the rest of the world the high status of the city, a city that must now be taken seriously. To say that I didn't expect this result would be nothing. At the beginning I didn't even know where to start. I have learned that the most important thing is simply to begin creating. Imagination will guide you along the way. I'm sure that among you there are people who know history and sea trade well. You could say what is missing and what is truly necessary, but I'm very happy with the result. In any case, always share your honest opinion. The advantage of this project is that we can always add something or change it later. Step by step, the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter is starting to take shape. The residents are also settling on the mainland more and more actively. Fearless Quarter is becoming a full district. Many factors influence this. One of them is the construction of the hill, another is the rising land prices on the island. Even though the southern part of the island is still free, walking distance plays a very important role. Yes, building a wall around the city is still not a priority. I think the ruler naively believes that the distance of the city and its location on an island already provide enough protection. Maybe this will truly be a mistake, but we will only see that in the future. The decision about the wall is also not clear to me. Should I build walls only around the island, even though it's not fully settled yet, or should I already start surrounding the mainland part together with the hill? Too many questions and too few answers. Nevertheless, people continue to arrive, and what I mentioned about the island not being fully settled is already becoming the past. In all new residential communities, especially those far from the center, I place standard buildings that have become a rule. A clinic, barracks that help maintain order, and a small school. In this way, even in distant quarters, the ruler shows care for the lowest levels of society. I think we should remember these scenes where we can still see fields on the island. One day this will most likely change. By the way, when it comes to fields and food production, it becomes more critical as the population grows. We need to give more land to farming and crop production. I already mentioned that the best places for farming are on this well-lit side of the hill. Not only is the soil good there, but the hill also protects both the city and the crops from strong winds. Vineyards grow very well on the slopes, as well as different fruit trees. As for the climate of Cityburg, I think it is clearly not tropical. It is more likely a moderate climate, not too hot and comfortable for agriculture. There will be always two types of farm fields in the city if we speak about simulation mechanics. Some are real functional fields from the industry menu that actually produce goods, others are fields used as props. I understood that I need to combine them to keep a good balance. I simply cannot always plan functional farming districts, provide infrastructure for them, and then remove them later, because farmland is often the first land to be replaced by housing as the city grows. We finally moved to the key building of this episode, the structure that caused such a long delay in releasing this video. The ruler of the city clearly wants to see himself almost as the Emperor of Rome. He wants his city to challenge even the great capital itself. So he planned and demanded from his architects to build a Hippodrome, the Circus Maximus. When I speak about a reckless ruler, of course I mean myself. After starting this project I regretted it 5 times because there was no way back and it turned out to be more demanding than I expected. But is that not wonderful? You do not just plop a huge and expensive building in your city, you truly feel its cost. You feel the effort required to build such a structure. This hippodrome, like the temple on the hill, could be treated as a great wonder and built over a long period of time. And we imagined that it was like that, but I simply could not allow that in practice. Having several massive projects under construction at the same time is incredibly difficult. So I built everything while the game was paused, which is very unusual for my style. Still, building something of this size from zero using simple shapes was never really in my plans. Of course, I used images of the Circus Maximus in ancient Rome as a reference. This structure truly inspired me and I imagined how well it would fit on our Long Island. I tried to capture the main features, but I didn't focus too much on exact historical details. Ancient hippodromes were large public arenas built for chariot races. There were not only places for sport but also for politics, celebration and public life. The Circus Maximus in Rome could hold more than 100,000 spectators. Races were the main event. As we can see, these arenas were long and narrow with seating in both sides and a central barrier called the spina. Statues, obelisks and monuments often stood in the middle. Hippodromes were not only built in Rome, they also appeared in other great cities of the ancient world such as Constantinople and Antioch, and now we have one in Cityburg. In Constantinople, the Hippodrome became the heart of the city's public life. Thousands of workers shaped the land, created strong foundations and built complex systems of entrances and exits to control huge crowds. These structures were symbols of power, they showed the wealth and ambition of the city, and they brought people together in moments of excitement and spectacle. The construction process, as it may seem to you, looks quite simple, but at that moment I didn't really understand where to start or how to build it in the best way. And still, this grand structure is finally complete. You can now see it in all its glory and I am extremely happy about it. After finishing the construction, I decided that it will be better if it stood along the Cardo. In this way, it will give one of the main streets a more ceremonial look, thanks to the arched facade and the straight perspective of the columns. For now, the Hippodrome may look too massive compared to the small houses around it. Maybe it was even built too early. But we both understand how quickly times can change and how a building like this can transform the space around it. It truly became handmade work. I think I'm mentally ready to try making something in the Steam workshop, we will see. Of course, this is a functional building. Unfortunately, I cannot make people sit in the stands, but the structure will still serve its main purpose. Sports tournaments will take place there. People will gather during competitions because inside there are functional blocks that works as stadium. Later I can also place markets under the arches, then it will become a kind of trading gallery as well. I don't know, maybe I should not spend so much time on single buildings. After all, the main theme of this series is the development of the whole city. But still, in every era there should be important structures that deserve special attention. They shape the future of the city and influence how it grows. What do you think about that? Meanwhile, on the hill you can already see the walls of the great temple under construction. The magnificent port, the shipyards, the busy harbor, the city continues to grow and there is always more ahead. I have already started working on the next episode. Yeah, to tell you a secret, I have already built many new things in the city. So I hope this time the video will come out much faster. And as I say again, it depends on your activity, my friends. You can clearly see how difficult it is to create projects like this. A huge thank you to the channel members and to my patrons on Patreon. For those who have not yet received an address in the city, the registration of new citizens and the distribution of houses will happen in the next video, I promise. Thank you very much for your support. And please don't forget to subscribe. It is still the most important thing to see a community that gives motivation to create. You, the subscribers, directly influence the development of the city. Leave your comments with advice and ideas and share the video with your friends. I believe in you and thank you for watching. Stay with Cityburg.